We've all had that moment, right? A little leak, a small spill, and you think, I'll just throw a fan on it, maybe crack a window. It seems so simple. But what we're going to dive into today is the real science behind drying out a space after water damage. And trust me, getting it wrong, well, that can lead to some seriously big problems.
Okay, let's just cut straight to the chase. The puddle you can see, that's not the real enemy. Not even close. The real problem, the thing you have to worry about, is what the water leaves behind. We're talking about this stuff, nasty mold that's silently growing deep inside your walls, long after you thought everything was totally fine.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First up, we'll talk about that invisible damage. Then we'll get into why your box fan is, well, pretty much useless for this. After that, we'll look at the actual professional system, tackle the big myth of dry to the touch, and finish up with how the pros prove a place is actually dry. Sound good? Let's go. All right, let's jump into part one, the invisible damage. And honestly, if you get this one concept, you'll understand the whole game. The water you can see with your own eyes, that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's almost never the real threat. Here's the best way to think about it. Your house is basically a giant sponge. I mean it. Your drywall, the wood in your walls, your subfloors, they all just soak up water and pull it deep inside. And that's exactly where the danger is hiding, in the moisture that's completely invisible from the outside. And this is what happens when that moisture just sits there. You see, a wall can look totally normal, absolutely pristine on the outside, but you pull back the curtain, so to speak, and this is what's lurking behind it. That trapped moisture, it's the perfect little home for mold, and it just starts eating away at your house from the inside out. Okay, so that leads us right into our next big topic, the DIY dilemma. Because let's be real, it is so tempting to think, I got this, I can handle a little water. But that whole approach, it usually misses the entire point of what's really going on. This chart really puts it into perspective, doesn't it? On one side, you've got the DIY approach, which is basically just guessing. On the other, you have a professional system that's all about science. We're talking high-velocity airflow versus a normal fan, controlled dehumidification, and actual scientific proof that it's dry. They're not even in the same league. It's like comparing a go-kart to a Formula One car. And here's a crazy thought. You know that instinct we all have to just open a window and air it out? Well, in a humid place like, say, Greenville, South Carolina, doing that can actually make things so much worse. You're literally just pulling all that soupy, humid air from outside into your already wet house. It's counterproductive. So, if throwing a fan at it and opening a window doesn't work, what does? Well, now we get to the good stuff, the professional drying system. This isn't guesswork, it's a scientific blueprint designed to get your home back to a healthy, dry state. It's really a three-part symphony, and every part is crucial. Step one, you gotta get the standing water out. Just get rid of it. Step two, you use powerful airflow to speed up evaporation. That turns the liquid water hiding in your walls into water vapor in the air. Then, step three, and this is key, you have to pull all that new vapor out of the air. You can't skip a step, they all have to work together. And this is where it all starts. Before the real drying can even begin, you have to get rid of any standing water. Job one. You'll also see pros setting up these containment zones. They're basically sealing off the area to create a controlled environment they can manage. All right, on to step two. And look, these are not your dad's old box fans from the garage. These are high-velocity air movers. They get placed very strategically to create a vortex of air that blows across all the wet surfaces. Their only job is to coax that hidden moisture out of the walls and floors and get it floating in the air. But, and this is super important to understand, the fans alone don't get rid of the moisture. No way. All they do is take it from the walls and put it into the air. If you stopped there, you'd just create a super humid tropical rainforest inside your house, and the walls would start soaking it all right back up again. It would be a vicious cycle. And this machine right here, this is the MVP, the industrial dehumidifier. This is the workhorse that completes the job. It sucks in all that humid air the fans kicked up, turns the vapor back into liquid water, and then pumps it away. This is the step that actually gets the water out of your house for good. Okay, this next idea might be the single most important takeaway from our entire chat today. We have to look past the idea of something just feeling dry to the touch. We've got to talk about the surface versus the structure. You see, the real goal for professionals is something called structural drying. And what that means, simply put, is that they're not done just because a wall feels dry. It's a scientific process to get the inside of that wall back to its normal pre-damaged moisture level. It's about restoring its health, not just its appearance.
So, the obvious question is, how do you even know, right? If you can't see the moisture because it's trapped deep inside, how on earth do you measure it? How do you make that invisible enemy visible?
Well, the answer is technology. It's pretty cool, actually. They use tools like a thermal camera, that's what you see on the left, which shows wet spots because they're colder. And on the right, that's a moisture meter. It gives them a precise digital reading of just how wet something is on the inside. It completely takes the guesswork out of the equation. It's all about the data.
And all that data leads us to the final critical step, verification. Look, the job isn't over just because the fans have been running for 3 days. It's over when the data, the science, says it's over. In fact, the industry's official rulebook from a group called the IICRC says it perfectly. The equipment stays put until the drying goals are met. Period. There are specific numbers they're aiming for, and until those meters hit those numbers, the job is not done. There's a very clear finish line.
So why is this so important? Why all the fuss about verification? Well, because if you don't get it right, you're looking at warped floors, crumbling drywall, even permanent structural damage. And of course, the big one, you're leaving the door wide open for that hidden mold to come roaring back later on. And let's be clear, this isn't just about your house. This is about your health. I mean, the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, says it flat out. The #1 way to prevent indoor mold is to control moisture. It's that simple. So I'll leave you with this one last question to think about. The next time you have a leak, big or small, yeah, the surface might look and feel dry. But now you know the real question to ask isn't, does it look dry? It's, is it structurally dry? And more importantly, is it truly safe?